Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round 4 of the AROC Halfords International Formula Alpha Championship. We're at Shanghai, China. A very different track to what we've seen so far during the series. We've enjoyed Kyle Army most recently. Before that, Spa. Different technical challenges, really. We enjoy a nice wide circuit where it comes down to who can place the car best through the corners to eke out the best lap time. Lots of long straights on this track to exercise that multi-air engine. We've seen, using some data from Colin Cadiff, that they tend to top out at about around 230 kilometers an hour. So I think everyone's going to be hoping for a low downforce setup to be the most effective. Of course, we might start to see a little bit of issues through the corners with that, but it's all part of the fun of finding the right setup for the car. So last time round, we saw Matt Daly take the lion's share of the points at Kyle Army with lots of chaos on track. He was able to benefit and have a relatively clean weekend, and awarded him with 50 points altogether. Just before him, we have Andrew Whitehead. He took home 30 points with Tim Perry in third. Colin Caniff, obviously the current championship contender, alongside Matt Daly, struggling with a few issues on track last weekend, so he'll be looking for a good weekend. Unfortunately, we're having some issues with the timing screen, unfortunately, so I can't quite see what people are doing in terms of laps using the regular data, so I'll have to go off a different screen, which isn't quite as pretty, unfortunately. And unfortunately, we can't actually see the top 3 qualifiers at the moment. But so far, we're kind of in the low 2 minutes. In fact, that might be our timing screen beginning to work, I hope. As we're on board with Guy Swarbrick at the moment, heading into T1, T2, and T3, all really part of the same kind of challenging complex. 145 miles an hour through speed trap there for Rob Whitney. He's coming towards the end of his lap. And there we go, our timing screen's back up. That's brilliant. So Paul Plant currently on pole. I believe it was last time round as well, actually setting in some great laps during qualifying. Rob Whitney 2.5 seconds down, that sees him in 7th. On board with Paul Plant coming to the end of the long straight, heading into T14. That engine screaming to try and get every KMH out. Paul Plant currently enjoying a 2/10 lead out on pole. Let's see what the competition, who are Andrew Craker and Alan Matthews. Let's see what they can do. Never mind, Paul Plant improves. That's 2:05. Excellent lap from Paul Plant there. Looks like he will be carrying on. Alex Smith, 1.7 seconds down on him. That puts him in 4th. Alan Matthews improving to take 2nd with a 2:06.1. Will Harper looks like he's having a couple of difficulties. Is that at the end of T3, T4, I think, maybe? Disconnecting there. Let's hope to see him back and get a decent lap in. Steve Knight here coming towards the T11, T12 complex. It's really important to get a good line through this so you get the most speed onto the long straight. Guys, Robert looks to be on a warm-up lap. Interesting circuit this. This was kind of the first... I'd have to double-check if it was actually developed by Herman Tilke, but it was the first kind of international GP circuit where they spent a lot of time on the architecture, etc. It's a really, really good-looking track even today. Draw a lot of attention of fans and glamour and all that. Unfortunately, that we didn't get to enjoy last year in the Formula 1 Championship, at least, owing to the current ongoing pandemic. Guy Swarbrick will be starting his fast lap now. Meanwhile, Alan Matthews currently 1 minute 20 coming onto the long back straight. Just shows you how long that back straight is. It's just over 2 minutes of the entire lap, and at 1 minute 10, you're only just coming onto that straight. And of course, these cars, by regular road car standards, are by no means slow, but it must feel like an age down that back straight. Meanwhile, a Formula 1 car would. It lasts mere seconds. current pole position sitter, currently just sitting in the pits. I'm sure he'll probably be relaxing a little bit for now. Might see if he can improve in his time later. Meanwhile, Alan Matthews just overtaking him in the pits there. He'll be trying to see where he can save some time to take that pole position from him. Like Steve Knight's had a very long warm-up lap. And he gone to the back straight now. Will he be benefiting from... Oh, no, he won't actually. He is still on his warm-up lap. Shame he hasn't timed that perfectly. He'll be hoping to benefit from a slipstream down there. Of course, you get the slipstream, you get a massive advantage. Although, to be honest, you do hit the rev limiter quite hard in these cars, so... I'm not sure how far you can over-rev these before you start having either just a flat-out just blocking speed or mechanical damage. These aren't, in the road cars at least, these aren't the most happy to rev 4 cylinders out there. They're much more of a kind of a mid-range grunt kind of old-school turbo engine. So we've currently got 7 seconds separating the 9 cars who've set a lap. Just goes to show how good that lap from Paul Plant was. So we start another lap now with Andrew Whitehead. We move over to Matt Daly, who's on the back straight. Slightly slower than he needs to be in that sector, unfortunately. It doesn't look like he'll be challenging Paul Plant's time at the moment. Paul Plant's back on track now. He'll be hoping to improve a little bit. So Matt Daly, he'll be setting his first time of the day, and he goes 4th fastest with a 2:07.1. Great first effort from Matt Daly there. We're on board now with Greg Young. He'll be starting his quick lap, perhaps. Oh, that was his quick lap. Greg Young setting a 2:07 flat. Great lap from him there, taking 4th position from Matt Daly. Like, did we have a little bit? Yeah, looks like we've got a little bit of commotion on track there. Just at the end of the pit lane exit, there'll be a little bit of traffic, perhaps. Let's see how this gets dealt with. Guy Swarbricks looks like he's had an off, unfortunately, or he's checking on something with the server. Either's likely. Around here, Greg Young behind this traffic then. No one really wanting to take the top spot by the looks of things. I think they'll be hoping for a slipstream. Fortunately, time screen not telling us what time Steve Knight is currently doing, but if it's certainly not a quick lap at the moment. Steve Knight going off, going wide a bit. I wonder if that was a tactical, in quotes, accidental off to try and enjoy some slipstream, but he looks to be a little bit too far back, perhaps, with the error on these cars to be enjoying a slipstream. Andrew Whitehead set a 2:09.6. That sees him in 9th position. Rob Whitney is behind Paul Millman now. It looks like Greg Young will be going out in front on this. Oh, it is a quick lap, I think. No, oh no, apologies. It's not a quick lap at the moment, I don't think, unless the traffic was really affecting him that much. Where's our other? We have Paul Millman behind Rob Whitney now. I don't think we had that kind of slipstream battle we're expecting, as there's 10 minutes of qualifying remaining. Meanwhile, our current pole contender looks like he's out on a warm-up lap at the moment. Or it may actually be a quick lap. It's quite difficult to tell on this track with it being so wide. I've recently enjoyed commentating at Kyle Army and Cadwell. You get a much better sense of speed, to be honest, as to what the cars are doing out on track without looking at the timing screen. Fortunately, with a little bit of a dodgy timing screen, it can be somewhat hard to tell sometimes. Yeah, I think this is a slow lap. Andrew Craker up in second now, with the second driver to hit the 205s. Great effort from him there. Meanwhile, Alan Matthews, he'll be hoping to see second place again. As he comes towards the end of his warm-up lap, or I say towards the end, right halfway through, given this big, long back straight. Really stressing these engines to the max. So I hope they've had their multi-air service. Any multi-air owners will know. Vital part of owning a multi-air engine. And I think this back straight will let any of the drivers know if that's been missed out. Matt Daly's exiting the pits now. Meanwhile, Greg Young comes onto the back straight now. See Andrew Wyatt leaving the pits. I thought he was just on a warm-up lap then, if I'm mistaken, so maybe he's making some setup tweaks to his car to try and eke out that extra few tenths. Meanwhile, Paul Plant's coming up on some traffic here. And that traffic is Alan Matthews. And Matthews will be hoping to challenge Paul Plant by the end of this qualifying session. But it looks like Alan Matthews is actually on a warm lap, so hopefully there won't be too many squabbles for either driver here. As we have Alex Smith and Greg Young leaving the pits now, as we come towards the closing stage of this quality session, they'll be trying anything with the setup or knowing where they need to improve to get towards the top of that timing screen. As unfortunately Greg Young looks to have locked up or spun perhaps. That won't be too kind in his tyres, but I think he should be able to carry on them. Oh, as we see, who's that? Alan Matthews, yeah, it was Alan Matthews going off towards the back straight. That'll have ruined his warm-up lap. Yeah, and you see him return to the pits there. As we delve a little bit inside the helmet of Paul Plant then. Gotta love virtual racing, its odd quirks. Paul Plant now, current pole sitter, going out for another quick lap. Let's see what he can do. Heading into T1 now, using as much track as possible while keeping the speed up. You need to set up yourself really nicely around this track through the corners to... as Paul Plant unfortunately gets a bit of oversteer and heads straight into the wall. That will have ruined his that lap there. He'll have to go back in and set himself up with another warm-up. Meanwhile, Andrew Craker coming towards the end of the back straight now. Ooh, it looks like that to be in miles an hour. I think it's 146. I think we've got a couple of drivers alternating between kilometres and miles. My conversions won't be entirely there, I don't think, unfortunately. I'll try my best, though, during the race. Andy Croker aborting that lap, I think. We're trying again in a minute. Unfortunately, we haven't got a time for Alex Smith at the moment, but looks like he looks like he's just starting his quick lap now behind some traffic. So let's see how this plays out for him. we have Andrew Craker leaving the pit just behind him now to initiate his warm-up lap. Who was it? That looks like... Can't quite work out who that was from the livery for a second there. I think that was Greg Young, perhaps, who went off at T1 or T2, pardon. Meanwhile, Paul Plant's back on a warm-up lap. Matt Daly's posted a time now of a 206.4. That's not where you want to be, unfortunately, for the championship. But let's see how we can improve. I think he may have tried to carry on, but there's a little bit of chaos going on front, and it spins him round. He just bit the grass a little bit, and it fought back. So that would have ruined his chances of carrying on that lap anyway. Yeah. On board with Alan Matthews now, stuck behind the car of Rob Whitney. Can't quite work out if they're on... Both of them are on fast laps, unfortunately, but if he is, maybe a little bit of slipstream won't do him some harm. Yeah, it looks like there's a bit of a wide line there, unfortunately, for Alan Matthews. Yeah, and he's slowing down. Meanwhile, behind him, Matt Daly, is he... Yeah, he'll be on a new out lap now. I think a couple more connection issues for Will Harper, unfortunately. Let's hope he can get a lap in before the end of quality. Not much time left now. See Alex Smith here coming towards the end of his lap. And I thought this was a hot lap. It may not have been. He may have aborted. Let's see if he posts a new time. No, he doesn't. He starts his hot lap now. Looking like he's quite wide through T1 there. Off to be a little bit disconcerting, T1. It lulls you into a false sense of security, really. Using as much steering lock as he can then through T3. To be honest, I think this track's so long and so drawn out. I think in order to keep the heat up by the time you've exited T13 and by the time you get to the start-finish line, it's such a long amount of track that I think you need to practically do a quality lap anyway, just to keep the temperature in the tyres. Yeah, so we see him lifting off a bit there, half a second slower through that sector, perhaps. He may be... Yeah, he looks like he's slowing down for this. Matt Daly then starting his hot lap, I think. No, that's overrun. He's not taking a hot lap either. Not too many changes around in this quality session. And I think those who aren't on their hot lap now aren't able to put in another lap, or aren't on their warm-up lap, pardon, aren't able to put in another lap. So don't think there'll be too many changes around in this at the end of this quality session. As we lose Rob Whitney there. Paul Plant comes to the end of a lap now. This will be his... He'll be able to start another lap after this. Yeah, and it looks like he is. Let's see if he can prove that. I was amazed to see such an... Oh, he dips into the grass there, using up a bit too much track. You've got loads of tarmac on that start-finish straight. No need to worry in these FAO ones. Little cars. Yeah, getting the nose in, hugging the curb tightly there, doing the same through T3 again. Alex Smith improves with a 206.8 there. Yeah, let's see if we can improve any more upon this. See Paul Millman disconnecting. Oh, Andrew Whitehead having an off, unfortunately, so if he was on his hot lap, that's his chances ruined, and he will be reserved to 8th position. I saw Brick sitting in the pit, so he'll be remaining in 7th there. See if we've got anyone coming towards the end of their lap here. We do. It's Alan Matthews. Can he improve? No, we can't. It looks like he's just started a new lap, though. Yeah, we've gone into overtime, so let's see what the remaining ones out on track setting hot laps can do. Oh, poor plan, spinning around, unfortunately, so I'm sure he'll be happy with that time anyway, but no chance for improvement. I'm sure that'll be... Well, he won't quite know it, but Andrew Craker's just been given a good opportunity to try and improve and take pole position. Looks like he's fighting the front end there through that corner. Headed to T10 now. I believe he's the man furthest out on track at the moment. Greg Young disconnecting. We've only got 5 runners remaining in this quali session. I think he's just a little bit behind where we want to be at the moment, unfortunately. Only 4 runners remaining in this session now, so I haven't quite been able to take note of the running order for quali, but Paul Plant's currently very comfortable on pole, unless Andrew Cricker's had a really good sector there. He hasn't. He's just 2/10s down at the moment, so he's going to have a really good final sector to take pole position away from Paul Plant, who has enjoyed pole for most of this quali session. Yeah, 142 miles an hour I was just seeing at the end of that back straight there. Personally, I'll just take the risky approach with the setup on this track and just go 0-0 wings downforce. Wings on both sides, to be honest. Try and squeeze anything you can out on the straights. And he doesn't improve, unfortunately. Paul Plant's pole position looks to be safe, unless... Yeah. So, great job from Paul Plant there. And we'll join you very shortly for the action with the actual race. Welcome back to the action of the round 4 of AROC Alfred's International Formula Alpha Championship 2021. We've got just over 30 seconds to lights out here at Shanghai, China. We'll see all these cars barreling into to T1. Let's hope there's not too much drama. So the competitors are beginning to rev their engines, probably trying to get ready for the perfect launch, because that'll be really beneficial at this track here, using all that tarmac to get around any slow starting competitors. All the lights on the gantry are lit. And we are away! Everyone getting a seemingly good launch. Unfortunately, I think we see is that... Oh dear, we got some action there between... It looks like Steve Knight was involved in that somewhere. We see Colin Knief on 10th here. He didn't qualify following a DSQ from last week's race. Looks like we've got Paul Plant, who was our pole position, our pole sitter. He doesn't seem to have much luck at the start of these races recently. He was on pole last weekend as well. Ended up in some big drama. That's demoted him down to 10th. So Alan Matthews now out in front of this race. Apologies for that silence, there's just some technical difficulties on my end, but we see some fierce battles going on between Andrew Whitehead, Paul Millman, Guy Swarbrick and Matt Daly. Paul Plant now down 11, so we see is that a possible retirement from Matt Daly? That'd be a great shame. That promotes Paul Plant back up into 10th. Meanwhile, Guy Swarbrick has got the move done on Paul Millman. Colin Knief has promoted himself up into 3rd, and he's now going around Alex Smith as we go on to the long back straight here. So excellent start for Colin Knief. However, Alex Smith just about getting past him, using as much, I don't know, probably lack of aero perhaps, or just a really, really good exit has benefited him just ever so slightly towards the end of the back straight. However, he didn't have the best run through T14, and that sees Colin Knief taking the position back. So, as we finish the first lap, it's Alan Matthews who's out in front with Greg Young just a second behind. Colin Knief just behind him now in the podium positions. Andrew Craker just behind him. Is he having, looks to be having, I don't know, some technical difficulties, perhaps on his simulator side, perhaps some steering issues. That'll promote Andrew Whitehead and Guy Swarbrick in 6th and 7th respectively. Rob Whitney getting around Andrew Craker at T1 up into 4th position. Unfortunately, is that Andrew Craker? Yes, that's Andrew Craker running a bit wide there. I'm not sure if we've sustained some front wing damage on a lot of these cars. Yeah, it looks like we have. That'll be a really, really big disadvantage around some of these sweeping curves here in Shanghai. See 3 cars in the pits now. Only 9 runners out on track at the moment, unfortunately. Still a second splitting the top 2 positions. Meanwhile, we've had a big collision. It looks like Alex Smith, Andrew Craker and Guy Swarbrick are involved in that, but Guy Swarbrick perhaps managed to benefit from it. Meanwhile, Andrew Whitehead and Rob Whitney neck and neck. Andrew Whitehead getting a good run and getting the move done. However, still less than a second between these two. Greg Young looks to be slowly catching up to Alan Matthews. Meanwhile, just behind him is Colin Knief. He'll be under some immense pressure as we get closer to the long back straight now with an exit. A good exit through a T13 will be really beneficial to him. Less than half a second separating these two now. Colin Knief right in his slipstream, I think, so that he'll have to get pretty defensive towards the end of this back straight. However, I don't know if it's a gearing thing with 148 miles an hour for Colin Knief down the speed trap. That's a little bit higher than what you'd otherwise expect. But I don't know if it's a gearing issue or maybe it's just the aero limitations of these cars. He can't seem to be making immense gains on him. And we come towards the end of the final 5 minutes. I've only just noticed it looks like Will Harper wasn't able to connect for the start of this race. Such a shame. So he'll He'll be a couple laps down at this point. Alan Matthews setting a fastest lap of the race. However, Colin Knief takes that after an exceptional lap of a 2:06 with fuel on board. Colin Knief getting the move done down the start-finish straight, and he enters turn 1 ahead. As Greg Young has a lock-up, maybe. Maybe he found the limit of his tyre temperatures, and unfortunately he's got to concede that position to Colin Knief after that lock-up there. Colin Knief having a great run through T1 and T2. He's now on the back of Alan Matthews, who enjoyed a little bit of a lead out in front just a moment ago. Paul Millman overtaking Paul Plant there, as it looks like Paul Plant's had an off. Such a shame. Unfortunately, through no fault of his own, we never seem to be able to see Paul Plant, capitalise on those pole positions that he has. I think he could otherwise be much higher up the grid at the moment in terms of championship standings. He's currently 12th, which is a big shame. He puts in some great qualifying laps, but unfortunately we don't see that materialise during the race for whatever reason. Colin Knief still a second behind Alan Matthews. It looks like that gap's opened up a little bit since start of the lap. Let's see if he can work the same magic that he worked on Greg Young and catching him through the back straight and eventually getting the move done at the start of the next lap. As we see another car pitting there, that's the car of Andrew Craker, some more damage to repair possibly. But luckily we've got a couple more cars out on track now, so I'm sure they'll be having their own little battles separate from the rest of the grid. Obviously trying to gain whatever position they can. We don't have many cars running this weekend, so it's not too difficult to find yourself in the points positions. So even if you are, even as far as a minute 30 down, you're definitely not out for the count. Gain as many points as you can. It'll be beneficial towards the end of the championship fight. It looks like Paul Plant's got a great exit at that corner and will get the move done on Paul Millman there. He's up into 9th now. So let's see where he can get with his recovery. I'm not sure if he'll make up a minute with the remaining probably about 20 minutes of this race, but let's see what he can do. Colin Knief setting another fastest lap just behind Alan Matthews. He'll be feeling under a lot of pressure right now. Colin Knief seems to hug that curb really well, and it seems to really benefit him. Alan Matthews running a little bit wider through T1 and T2. You just see how much that nose gets towards the back of Alan Matthews. Gains a lot through that complex there. Less than half a second separating these two now. So the glowing red brakes under the hard braking zones. Alex Smith just behind Steve Knight here. He'll as we come through turn 3. I'm sure this will be a battle that'll go on for the rest of this lap. Well, Colin Knief still just behind Alex Matthews. Oh, sorry, pardon me, Alan Matthews. Meanwhile, Matt Daly has got an overtake done. Oh, Andrew Craker still just in the pits, I think. Meanwhile, Alan Matthews still not comfortable yet. Still not away from that car of Colin Knief. As it looks like as Andrew Whitehead had an off. He has, unfortunately, and that will see a few cars benefiting. Guy Swarbrick running very well at the moment, up in 4th. Colin Knief, I don't think he didn't have the best run through T12 and T13, T14, because unfortunately you see the gap opening up to a second. Maybe Alan Matthews running a slightly different setup as well, benefiting down straights. Still a very high speed for these multi-air powered FA01s of 149 miles an hour down the back straight. That's a lot of good going for 170 odd horsepower, if my memory serves me correctly. Just over 15 minutes to go then of this race. So far it's had some really good battles. Seen a lot of misfortune out on track as well, but some very good battles that kept a lot of the drivers kind of scratching their heads as to where they can gain that extra performance. It's like Steve Knight has found a nice gap to slot in between Rob Whitney and Alex Smith. Fortunately, seems to take a bit of an odd line there. I don't know, maybe he's conceding position perhaps due to a misdemeanor in the previous lap, but yeah, seems to be maybe he's just taking the wide line, trying to see a quick line in this. Obviously, there's a lot of tarmac here, so if you find a place that works for you, why not go for it? So that promotes Alex Smith up into 6th, and he gets a really good line through T2 and T3. That will get him ahead of Rob Whitney now. Meanwhile, a little bit further out in front, Geiss Robrick having an excellent race so far up in 4th. He's got a back marker to contend with, who's 2 laps down. Will Harper looked like he had some connection issues perhaps at the start of the race. Wasn't quite able to make the start, but I'm sure the experience will be really valuable around this track. It's a nice technical circuit. Still a half a second gap between 1st and 2nd position. He has had another off, unfortunately. Maybe this setup or this track just not quite working the way he was expecting. So that'll promote Steve Knight up into 7th. Still a half a second separating these students, probably getting frustrating for both drivers. Alan Matthews will be wanting him to concede so he can relax a little bit out in front. Meanwhile, Colin Knief will be trying to take what he knows he's capable of. 148.6 miles an hour. I think we've seen that speed a lot. We're really capitalising, using to their best ability the gearing on these 1.4 multi-air powered cars. Yeah, now up to a second separating these two, so maybe there is a difference in setup, or maybe Alan Matthews is just a lot more confident in the braking towards that the end, coming up to T14. Conklin on a slightly faster lap that lap, but only fractionally. Not much between these two drivers right now. Matthews doing an excellent race so far, keeping a level head, keeping the immensely fast Colin Kniefer behind him. But as we see, Colin Kniefer has an excellent line through T1 and T2, and we'll see him just gain right up to the rear end of that FA01. And there isn't much that he can do really, because there's an excellent offensive move from Alan Matthews there, keeping him just behind where he knows he's quick. Just see a little bit, perhaps outbraking himself slightly, or Colin Knief was very brave on the brakes. Either way, they did a good job to not have a collision there. This is a track that hopefully we'll be seeing some action at this year in the Formula 1 Championship. Of course, missing out due to the pandemic that was ongoing in 2020. As we see Colin Knief now just a 10th splitting them. He had a great exit through that corner there as we head up into T11. But unfortunately, he doesn't quite get the move done. Some great defence from Alan Matthews so far. He'll have another go, though, coming onto the back straight. The gap just widening slightly now. Alan Matthews, very level-headed, very good drive from him so far. Alan Matthews currently 7th in the championship, so a nice haul of points will promote him up quite a few positions, possibly in kind of like the 5th, 4th range maybe. So this win will mean a lot to him, and for that reason he does just have to keep a nice, calm, level head. Meanwhile, Guy Swarbrick still having a great race up in 4th. Gap staying fairly consistent between the drivers now after the early stage chaos. We're just over the halfway mark for this race, and yeah, drivers doing a good job setting in some consistent and really good laps. Meanwhile, Steve Knight has gone around Rob Whitney. Maybe a poor exit from Rob Whitney there through T13. Because it's not too common of an overtaking place really as it is in F1, because these cars just don't have the straight line speed to make the most of the braking zones around here. Regardless, it's still a very good advert for those multi-air engines that are unfortunately kind of a dying breed in the road cars now. Still a very good advert for them to see these aero-cladded cars up to 150 miles an hour. I mean, off the top of my head, the only cars I can think left was Rob Whitney just... Yeah, Rob Whitney's got the move done on Steve Knight again. Drivers picking their best line through T1 and T2, and obviously they're really working well for some people, and not so well for others. But so it's a difficult track to master. As Guy Swarbrick's been promoted up into 3rd. We had a bit of an off from Greg Young, perhaps. There was quite a gap between the two. Or was that just a timing screen error? That may have just been a timing screen error. Yes, it looks like they've just swapped positions, but I didn't see that happening on track. Such are the wonders of technology. Still half a second separating Rob Whitney and Steve Knight now. Yes, I think the multi-air engine is, to be honest, sort of a dying breed. Off the top of my head, I can think of... Not entirely sure if the Abarth uses multi-air, I'm sure. The answer to that is very clear, and I'm probably very wrong. I think it may do. And of course, the Giulietta, which is now out of production. So, it's great technology. Shame to see it kind of die. It has its flaws, but obviously it can make these 1.4 little engines very powerful indeed. Still a bit of a gap that Colin Knief just can't seem to quite make up with just over 10 minutes remaining of this race now. However, he'll have his really good... He's trying a new line by the looks of things, going wide to see if he can get around the car of Alan Matthews. It looks like Steve Knight has actually overtaken Rob Whitney. Again, a great battle growing between these two now. And it all looks to be happening towards the back straight. So maybe there's a difference in setup. Either way, very skilled from both drivers so far to have a great battle around the Shanghai track. Rob Whitney will be aligning himself with the slipstream of that of Steve Knight again. It looks like Steve Knight's actually carrying in some damage, so that should be playing into Rob Whitney's hands as we head through T1 and T2. Not much separating Colin Knief up in front. We'll have to jump back to them in just a moment, but Rob Whitney getting the overtake done, as it looked like Colin Knief was hunting for the move, but wasn't able to quite get it to stick. However, he's got another great exit right on the nose. Is Alan Matthews. Colin Knief swinging his car out, but he doesn't look like he's quite up the track as much as he would want to be to get that move done, so he's taking the sensible approach and dip back into the slipstream. Start finish straight now. Both cars in almost sort of a stalemate. However, it looks like Colin Knief is gaining slightly. We see 148.6 miles an hour again, the favoured readout for that speed trap there. Colin Knief, will he get... It looks like he's just ahead in the braking zone there. However, Alan Matthews will shut the door on him hard. Excellent job from Alan Matthews to take that position back. Nice bit of bravery there to not just concede the position. Colin Knief doing an excellent job, judging the braking zone just perfectly. Steve Knight and Rob Whitney having another very close battle. That damage really affecting Steve Knight. He's doing an excellent job to drive through that aero loss. Colin Knief still just behind Alan Matthews, and he's really close this time. His preferred T1, T2 complex. Will this benefit him? It doesn't look like he will. He's still not far ahead enough to make the move stick, unfortunately. Alan Matthews having a great run through there as well this time. Greg Young still enjoying a comfortable drive up in third position. It's great to see him on the bottom step of the podium right now. Guy Swarbrick. Sorry, yes, that's Guy Swarbrick out in fourth. Greg Young's in third. Apologies. Steve Young and Rob Whitney, have they had to come together? They have, unfortunately. What a shame. We've had seen some great battles between them so far. What a shame to see that put to an end. Don't quite have the footage to see what happened there, but such a shame to see the so far excellent race between the two come to an end. I think, yes, what a very gentlemanly move from Steve Knight there. It looks like he's slowed down a bit to allow Rob Whitney to catch up, perhaps. So, commendations to him for that. Colin Knief still just behind Alan Matthews. If Alan Matthews takes this win, there's a very good job from him. He's been under pressure for a lot of this race now, and no real major mess-ups for him so far. Looks like Rob Whitney's overtaken Steve Knight now. I'm sure that won't be for the last time in this race. So far, they've enjoyed a really good battle. Colin Knief on the back straight again. I'm having a bit of deja vu, to be honest. It looks like, though, he's got a really good slipstream this time. Let's see how brave he is under braking, and he may get the move done. He's currently just out in front, but will the move stick this time? I think it just about will. However, he's running wide. Will this see Alan Matthews take the position back? It does! Excellent exit from that corner from Alan Matthews there. I think we got a car. We think we got a car in the pits, unfortunately. Oh no, that is my own. Ignore me. Listen to the engine note of my own car and assume that we had a DNF in the race. Luckily, we do not. Well, it looks like Colin Cleave's had a little bit of a mess up there. Perhaps a bit too much speed behind Alan Matthews, and it looks like they either just tapped or just avoided contact. However, I don't know if Alan Matthews had a bit of a poor exit. That gives Colin Knief the current first position. This battle's gone on for a long time. I'm sure this won't be the last that we see of it. Not sure if Alan Matthews is perhaps running out of grip. We've seen him take a couple of interesting lines so far. However, Alan Matthews now up alongside Colin Knief, who took his first position back, and he takes it back himself. Andrew Whitehead getting around Steve Knight, maybe. Steve Knight finally, I think, losing a little bit of performance with that front wing damage. Colin Knief now on the outside of Alan Matthews. However, Alan Matthews a little bit brave under braking. However, it's not quite enough, and they make contact. Good job from Paul Plan, who's off track, unfortunately, after taking pole and starting this race in first. He hasn't had the best race, unfortunately. Good job from him for a safe rejoin of the track. Yeah, contact between the two drivers there. Luckily, no ill effects from it, really, to speak of. Alan Matthews just behind him as we head onto the back straight now, and he has a great exit through T12, T13, T14. Apologies for T12 and T13, really. T14 towards the end of the back stop, or towards the end of the back straight. And Alan Matthews is now out in head, technically. I'm sure this won't be the last move that these two make there. They are wheel to wheel coming into the braking zone, into T14. 150 miles an hour from Colin Knief. I think that's a new speed record for him for this race so far. He goes through the inside, and that seems to be the better exit so far. However, Alan Matthews taking the outside line. He now has the inside line onto the start-finish straight. However, Colin Knief shuts the door on him, and will be starting the next lap out in front. Excellent few laps from these two drivers so far. Great battle all race. Some excellent driving. Meanwhile, we see Steve Knight down in 8th at the moment. He's had a great drive with that amount of damage, battling Rob Whitney for so long. Rob Whitney now enjoying 6th at the moment. Guy Swarbrick having a great race up in 4th with the back marker of Paul Plant just behind him there. Greg Young starts a lap now in 3rd, taking the bottom spot at the podium. He's had a great race. A second now separating the top 2 spots. It looks like that lead's slightly increasing. Nevertheless, I'm sure Alan Matthews will be very happy with 2nd position. Still a great haul of points. As we see Andrew Whitehead getting around Rob Whitney on the back straight here. Looks to be quite a decisive overtake from Andrew Whitehead there. Half a second between these two now. I think this is going to go towards the end of the race. We have under 5 minutes remaining now. Unless there's a major mess up, I think this will be a battle that will not fizzle out. Some great driving from these two so far. Some great pace on display. Looks like Matt Daly is going to have to DNF, unfortunately. Such a shame. Always a quick driver. Such a shame to see him DNFing. He's currently on top of the championship standing, so this won't help him at all if Colin Knief remains in this position. Good to see that championship battle will continue to the next round. And probably towards the very end of the season. These two are all... Colin Knief and Matt Daly always up for a good fight between the two. So your new quickest lap of the race, I believe, a 2:06 flat from Colin Knief. That's an excellent lap. Of course, the fuel load's diminishing slightly. As the gap now extends, Colin Knief using his skills through T1 and T2. Take that really good line that he prefers. Just over a second now separating those two. Excellent battle though up until this point. Just under a minute on the timer then. And then we'll head into the final, I think, couple of laps of this race. Running orders so far as Colin Knief has taken that top spot after a very, very long, arduous battle with Alan Matthews. Great driving from Alan Matthews in second. On the defensive the entire race, didn't slip up once. I think at the end just ran out of grip or pace maybe. That saw Colin Knief take advantage and take the top spot. Greg Young having a great race in third as well, followed by Guy Swarbrick also having an incredible race up in fourth. No mistakes from these two drivers at all. Alex Smith up in fifth. Andrew Whitehead in sixth with a back marker of, it looks to be Paul Millman up in front of him. Rob Whitney crossing the start-finish line in seventh. Steve Knight in eighth. Paul Millman in ninth, overtaking Paul Plant in the pits. I think he may be DNFing, unfortunately, at this late stage in the race. Andrew Craker in 11th and Will Harper in 12th. 2 laps to go for Colin Knief then. 150 miles an hour down the start-finish... Oh, sorry, not the start-finish straight. The back straight through that speed trap there. Heading to T14 now. Alan Matthews maybe trying to hold his pace back a little bit. You know, stop those tyres from overheating. Make sure he's got enough speed at the end of the race to fight Colin Knief. He's got 2 laps to see if he can gain that top spot on the podium back. It's still not out of the cards, although Colin Knief is an incredibly quick driver. Both now delving into the 205s. Alan Matthews, I think, setting the fastest lap of the race, quicker than Colin Knief that time round. Final lap now for Colin Knief, pardon me. So he's going to have to work something, I think, pretty special, Alan Matthews is, to take the top spot on the podium, but then again, I do not think he'll be unhappy at all with second. Of course, this grid will be a really good grid to see at the reverse grid race now. Of course, Paul Plant can always get the car high up in qualifying, and he will be perhaps benefiting from that reverse grid, I think, unless it's only a partial reverse grid. He'll be benefiting and towards the top of the grid. This gap still not closing as much as Alan Matthews would like as we head towards the final stages of the final lap of the race. Second and a half now separating these two drivers. I think Alan Matthews will probably just have to settle for second unless there's some type of miraculous mechanical failure from Colin Knief for him. An excellent drive from all 3 podium sitters. So we saw a bit of action, a bit of chaos at the start of this race, but everything seems to have settled in and put in some consistent performances today. Paul Plant is DNFing, unfortunately. Not the race he would have wanted following pole from in quali. Colin Knief now heading around T14 and coming up to T16, the final corners, the final lap of this race for him. A great victory for him, one that he really had to fight for. Alan Matthews doing a great job of kicking behind for so long, but Colin Knief will take the checkered flag in first. Excellent job from him and Alan Matthews, who takes home second. Greg Young coming through T14 and T15 now. A relatively quiet race for him, actually, but nonetheless a very well-deserved P3 for him. He crosses the line now in P3. Excellent job from him as we hear the car in the background of Guy Swarbrick. Another really great race from him. He's up in 4th today as he heads through T16 now. And will cross the... and will pass the checkered flag in 4th position. Great job from him. Well-deserved victory lap for Colin Knief there. I'm sure those two will have enjoyed that battle immensely. Some really great driving from them is what we absolutely love to see. Alex Smith crossing the line in 5th now, with Andrew Whitehead not too far behind in 6th. And not too far behind him we have Rob Whitney. And I think that's the... is that the back marker car of Stephen? There looks to be a back marker just behind him. Yes, it is. That's Will Harper, who wasn't able to make the start of the race, unfortunately. Rob Whitney taking home 7th. Will Harper will classify 11th. I think we only have Steve Knight, who is on the lead lap of the race. He will be taking home 8th. And Andrew Craker has taken home 10th there. So, great job from all the drivers. Some nice consistent driving along with some excellent battles throughout that race. Most notably Steve Knight and Rob Whitney. Steve Knight carrying damage, yet still putting up a good fight with Rob Whitney for so long before, unfortunately, I think we saw the end, or we saw the damage taking its toll. And Colin Keneath and Alan Matthews, of course, battling for so long. Alan Matthews under pressure for so long, but not really cracking. Colin Keneath putting in a great drive to take the victory in that race. So, we will join you very shortly for race 2 of this weekend. See you soon. So, welcome back to the action here in Shanghai. An exciting race that's gave us quite an interesting reverse grid, really. We've got two very quick drivers filling up the front row of the grid here. We've got Paul Plant and Matt Daly. I'm sure as we can make it through the first couple of laps safely, I'm sure these guys will possibly run away with it, but even if that isn't the case, have some really good battles regardless. So the gantry is ready. We're ready. Just 10 seconds to go now till lights out. The lights are lit. And we are away. I think we see a couple, Guy Swarbrick having a slow start there at the back. However, Paul Plant has had a better start than Matt Daly, who's down in 4th now. And enters T1 ahead. We've had maybe Colin Kneath, Steve Knight getting demoted back a bit. So, oh, we've had another off from Paul Plant. It's like Greg Young and Guy Swarbrick were involved in that. Was that Will Harper, not Greg Young? My mistake. But another shame for Paul Plant at the start of the race. He had another great grid position, but wasn't able to capitalise on it, unfortunately. Let's see what he can do in recovery. Meanwhile, Paul Millman is being challenged by Alan Matthews, taking the wide line. Alan Matthews having the inside and getting the better exit. He'll promote himself up into 5th. Meanwhile, Andrew Craker is leading the race at the moment and is over 2 seconds ahead of Andrew Whitehead. He's got a nice lead so far. Colin Kneath is fighting through the grid already, up in 7th now. Paul Millman is next on his list. Paul Plant is overtaking Matt Daly. Matt Daly's had a horrific start, I think, unfortunately. The front row of the grid has found themselves towards the back again. Much as they did in the previous race. What a shame. Steve Knight being overtaken by Matt Daly and Paul Plant now. It looks like he had a bit of a slow entry into T12 there. Meanwhile, a 4-second gap now increasing for the lead here, but he's under immense pressure from Greg Young, who has had the better exit onto the back straight. Andrew Whitehead hitting the rev limiter, as you could hear then, and he will be relegated into 3rd, but not too soon maybe. He had a great exit through T15 and is now challenging Greg Young for that position back. Oh, Greg Young getting a bit of oversteer and collecting Andrew Whitehead with him. Andrew Whitehead not able to avoid that, unfortunately, and that will see him down in 4th, I think. Yes, I know that'll be more. He's losing a couple positions, I think. Yeah, he's 5th now. Greg Young down in 10th, unfortunately, after that. Such a shame. They were just a moment ago battling for the top spot, for the 2 spots on the podium. That'll see Will Harper promoted up into 10th. And Matt Daly and Paul Plant up into 9th and 8th respectively. 7 seconds now splitting the front runner and the others. So if Andrew Craker can put in some quick, consistent driving, he shouldn't have too much to worry about, really. I think Colin Kneath is just on the back of Alex Smith now. Colin Kneath doing another excellent recovery drive from the back of the grid at the start of this reverse grid race. Soon to be challenging the podium positions. Colin Kneath in 3rd now. We hear the turbo going on that multi-air engine as we head onto the back straight. Bouncing off the red limiter a little bit in 4th there, or 3rd perhaps. By the looks of things, yeah, it'll be 3rd around this corner in these cars. Andrew Whitehead having another off. What a shame for Andrew Whitehead. He got collected when he was fighting for the podium positions and now sees himself relegated back into 9th on the start of the back straight. He lost a lot of momentum heading onto the straight. That will affect him badly. Will Harper obviously overtaking him thanks to the additional speed he was carrying onto the start of the back straight. Meanwhile, Matt Daly's up into 7th, and Alex Smith has overtaken Colin Keneath, but Colin Keneath is just alongside him, and is definitely not finished there. He's not happy with that move at all. Andrew Craker putting in a really good lap for the early stage of this race into the 205s, given the heavy fuel load he'll be carrying. Extending that lead out in front. Up to 8 seconds now out in front. As I said, a good, consistent drive from him. He won't have too much opposition towards the end of this race, and it'll be a nice haul of points for him. Paul Plant was up into 5th, but unfortunately he's spun heading into turn 1. That sees him down in 7th. He's lost a lot of momentum from that again. He's had a borderline unsafe rejoin. I'm sure not his fault. It just owes to the... I think he's taken a lot of damage, unfortunately. He'll be pitting, hopefully trying to rejoin for the remaining just over 20 minutes of this race. That Guy Swarbrick's taking a... Maybe he's carrying some damage himself. Seems to be fairly slow through T2 there. Rob Whitney has overtaken Paul Milburn and promoted himself up into 6th position. Matt Daly ahead of him now. Greg Young disconnecting from the server. Hopefully we'll see him rejoin before the end of this race. Paul Milburn taking an interesting line there onto the grass. I said drivers could use a lot of space here. I don't think that was part of it. I think I was referring more to the immense amount of tarmac on the Shanghai circuit. Not quite a Rallycross series yet, but you never know. Some setup changes, some different tyres. We could be there. Will Harper has been shown to have overtaken Steve Knight. I didn't quite see that happen, unfortunately, but he will now enter T10 ahead of him. Bounced off the rev limits a little bit in 2nd, most likely, I think, in these cars. Maybe 3rd. Meanwhile, nearly 10 seconds separating the podium positions and Andrew Craker. Great drive from him. Hopefully he's not running too little fuel with that amazing lap he's put in, and we won't see what we've seen a couple of times in this championship, or especially in the TCR championship as well. Drivers forgetting to refuel their cars between the 2 races or set the fuel correctly, and we've seen some people's race really ruined by that. Paul Plant is back out on track, which is lovely to see. He is a minute down on the other driver. He's got just under 20 minutes to make up some space, though, so we still might see him fighting for the points yet, if some drivers have some misfortune. Paul Milman has to pit to fix some damage, I think. Yeah, we see Will Harper up into 8th as well. Great drive from him so far. Andrew Whitehead on a recovery drive after his misfortunes earlier in the race, as he was fighting for those podium positions, and sees himself now down towards the bottom end of the points. Still not much separating Colin Keneath and Alan Matthews. This is, as I said, deja vu. I mean, ignoring Andrew Craker, who's about 4 hours out in front. A bit of deja vu for these 2 drivers. Colin Keneath putting some pressure on under Alan Matthews. Alan Matthews has got some experience now in how to cope with Colin Keneath for so long. And this won't be an easy path for Colin. Apologies while I just take a drink there. Colin Keneath still hunting with the front end of his car. Just on the rear end of Alan Matthews's. Let's hope we have this go on for another kind of 10-15 minutes, as we saw in the previous race. I think I turned the volume a little bit. Yep, my apologies. I've turned the volume a little bit too low. There, that should hopefully be better now. Half a second now separating these 2, and not much further behind is Alex Smith. Another good race from him so far. We see Matt Daly. He's had a recovery after being, I think, down in 10th or 11th we saw earlier. He's now up in 5th, and has got a little bit of a gap behind him. Rob Whitney in 6th. Guy Swarbrick not far behind Will Harper. I'm sure we'll see these 2 battling quite well. Very similar livery cars, these 2. Which is always nice to see almost part of the same team. In fact, are they? This might be... No, they are not. But nevertheless, I'm sure we'll see these 2 battling at some point during this race. Quite a long while to go yet, around this long Shanghai track. Alan Matthews, that's a scary view for Alan Matthews there. If you look at his rear view, that rear view camera there, constantly being hunted down by Colin Knief. He had that 3/10 half a second gap for a long while last race. I'm sure he's used to it by now. But he's doing an excellent job so far of not cracking under pressure like so many of Colin Knief's rivals have in the past. Over a second now separating these two, but I'm sure this battle is nowhere near completed. Andrew Craker enjoying 9 seconds out in front now. He can put his feet up a little bit, I think, turn on the radio and drag it home, I think. He's done a great job so far. Meanwhile, it looks like Paul Plant's kind of extended that gap between him and the car in front. So unfortunately, not another ideal race for Paul Plant. Again, Colin Knief has got around Alan Matthews quite quickly this time, bouncing off the rev limiter though onto the back straight. Will that see Alan Matthews enjoy a good slipstream? It looks like it will as we head towards a speed trap now. It looks like Alan Matthews will get the move done. Colin Knief not having the best entry onto the back straight, 148.4 miles an hour as he overtakes Colin Knief. Heading into T14 now, he'll take the inside line. No, he won't. He'll run a tiny bit wider than he would have wanted, giving Colin Knief the inside line, but however, he still has a good exit regardless, and has shut the door on him heading into T16. Both running really wide there, riding along that curb. 10 seconds between him and the lead now. Excellent race from Andrew Craker as we head on to the 5th lap of this race for Alan Matthews. As it looks like, in analysing the team radio chat, we've had a couple of connection issues with Greg Young, unfortunately. Seeing him DNF, but also seeing him affect the car of Will Harper and Andrew Whitehead. Shame to see that, but it's just part and parcel of virtual racing. Excellent camera angle there, seeing how Alan Matthews is positioning himself in those corners with Colin Knief hunting him just close behind. Got a little bit of a battle emerging between Guy Swarbrick and Will Harper now. Just as expected, these two fighting heading through the T1, T2, T3 complex. Guy Swarbrick positioning the nose to take the inside line, and he does so and takes the position, in fact. 8th place for Guy Swarbrick now, but that'll be under pressure soon enough by Will Harper heading into the next corner. 3/10 now separating Colin Knief and Alan Matthews, but the move cannot be done yet, unfortunately. Is that Will Harper? That is Will Harper, unfortunately. Oh, no, it's not. That's Andrew Whitehead. My bad. Andrew Whitehead having more misfortune in this race, which promotes Guy Swarbrick and Will Harper into 7th and 8th, respectively. Good job from Andrew Whitehead to rejoin and not affect the race in any way. Let's see how Andrew Whitehead can recover from these mid-stage mistakes. We get close to the halfway point of this race now. Just a 10 separating these two. Colin Knief not quite able to get the move done through T14. However, he's just close behind on the start-finish straight and has the far better exit as we come across the start-finish line, and they are wheel to wheel, neck and neck. Colin Knief just edging out in front. Let's see how brave he is under braking now, coming into T1. It looks like he'll extend that gap just a little bit. However, runs somewhat wide. Alan Matthews exploring that gap that he's created, heading into T3 now. Still that ever so present 3/10 gap between the two. This time the positions are swapped around, but I'm sure that state of play will change as we head through this race. The lead of Guy Swarbrick on Will Harper is extending ever so slightly, but it's still anyone's game as to who will be out in front between these two towards the end of the race. And then we've got a few gaps between Rob Whitney, Matt Daly, Alex Smith and Alan Matthews. But Alan Matthews and Colin Knief obviously just on each other, as they were in the previous race. Just over 10 minutes to go with this race now. second emerging between these two now, so Guy Swarbrick will be starting to feel a tiny bit more comfortable in that second position. Perhaps Will Harper just getting himself ready for another attack on him, which will inevitably come towards the end of this race. However, Rob Whitney and Guy Swarbrick are now less than a second apart. Guy Swarbrick having a really good lap so far, and this will start to give Rob Whitney some pressure. Rob Whitney downshifting as hard as he can, arguably just about over-revving that engine slightly as we head into T11. Guy Swarbrick just behind Rob Whitney now, enjoying that slipstream on the... He doesn't look like he needs to enjoy that slipstream, maybe. It looks like as we head through the speed trap, he will have the advantage. Colin Knief setting a fastest lap of the race, extending his gap ever so slightly on Alan Matthews. Meanwhile, Guy Swarbrick has overtaken Rob Whitney good and proper. However, Rob Whitney tries a really brave dive on under braking, and that was a part of the track that Guy Swarbrick was also going for. A really brave, cheeky bit of racing that I think is just great from Rob Whitney there. That prevents Guy Swarbrick from getting that position and keeping it. Rob Whitney getting his elbows out and saying, "No, that is mine. I am taking it back," and he does so. That leaves Guy Swarbrick really vulnerable to Will Harper now. He'll be really unhappy with that T14 for him. Will Harper capitalising on Guy Swarbrick's misfortunes through that corner and seeing himself in 7th now. That'll be one he's very unhappy with, as Guy Swarbrick may be losing his cool a little bit. Sees himself spin at T2. What a shame. He'd driven such a good race up until now. Some really good battles from him, as we saw in the first race of the weekend as well. He stays in 9th owing to the big gap between 9th and 10th. But it looks like he's overheated his tyres possibly. Another spin from him there. What a shame to see his fall from 7th and 6th position, in fact. A really good race from him so far. That's kind of unravelled for him just in a few corners. Yeah, it looks like he's completely overheated that rear end. He's struggling with it entirely. He'll either have to pit now or limp it to the pits to try and get a new set of rubber on so he can complete this race in the points, because Paul Plant is not too... Well, I say not too far. He will soon be on the same lap as Guy Swarbrick, and will be pressuring him if Guy Swarbrick has to limp it round as slowly as he is. What a shame. Will Harper now diving to get past Rob Whitney in a move not too dissimilar from the T14 move from Rob Whitney himself, but locking, unfortunately, at T12. Pardon me, T11. And that'll see Rob Whitney keeping 6th. Rob Whitney defending P6 with all of his life. Will Harper bouncing off the limiter a bit there. That won't see him gain as much as he would have wanted to on the back straight. But I'm not sure, to be honest, you want to challenge Rob Whitney into at the end of the back straight. We've seen what happened with Guy Swarbrick. Matt Daly is now overtaking Alex Smith. We didn't, unfortunately, get to see that. I think there was a little bit of camera weirdness. Rob Whitney looks like was challenged by Will Harper there, but Rob Whitney keeping the position. However, he hasn't the best exit heading into T16. So Will Harper will try... Maybe? No, he will take the sensible option and just stay in the slipstream onto the start-finish straight. Gap extending just a little bit between Alan Matthews and Colin Knief now. Let's see what challenge Alan Matthews can mount for Colin Knief towards the final stage of this race. Meanwhile, up out in front, his lead... Oh no, pardon me, will go to Will Harper and Rob Whitney. Will Harper getting around Rob Whitney. Rob Whitney looking like he left braking until just last second at T2 there to carry as much speed as he could to try and get a move done on Will Harper again. Rob Whitney looks fairly desperate to try and keep that P6, but unfortunately he hasn't for now. A second building between those two. However, seeing Rob Whitney's bravery so far through these past couple of laps, I'm sure that won't withstand. Andrew Craker's lead then has decreased ever so slightly with Colin Knief behind him. I'm sure Colin Knief will now do his usual of just setting quali lap after quali lap to try and gain on Andrew Craker on the top spot of the podium there. However, Alan Matthews, in fact, is not too far behind him. He's found a little bit of pace over this lap and is now gaining on Colin Knief. So Alan Matthews then heading into T16 just on the behind of Colin Knief. 3/10 separating them now. Colin Knief setting a really good lap that time of a Pardon me, no, Alan Matthews sitting at 2:04.9. Exceptionally good lap from him there. We are towards the final stages of this race, so we'll be getting fairly low on fuel now, but nevertheless, given race conditions with race tyres and race fuel, exceptionally good lap from Alan Matthews there. That'll be putting Colin Keefe under some pressure, seeing that. Andrew Whitehead has overtaken Rob Whitney, who's now found himself in 8th position. Rob Whitney's turn of pace has perhaps disappeared over this past lap. He was working very hard to defend 6th, and unfortunately, I think having worked so hard, maybe his tyres are getting a little bit worn out, maybe a bit overheated. We're starting to see that unravel a little bit. 6 seconds now separating first and second, so second and third obviously running very fast. Number 1 keeping at pace with each other, but number 2 gaining on the Andrew Craig out in front, who since lap 1 has enjoyed that top spot of the podium. A second and a half kind of building now between Rob Whitney and Andrew Whitehead. He may have to kind of relax for a little bit and prepare himself for his next attack on the cars out in front. Meanwhile, Guy Swarbrick, who was obviously having a really good race, up in 6th at one point, is now demoted down to 10th. Still staying in the points, which it looks like that rear end of that car is just not under control for him. It looks like those tyres really took a bit of damage. Perhaps he wheel spinned a bit. And it looks like that was a borderline unsafe rejoin for him there. It was a back marker, but nevertheless, it's not the ideal rejoin from Guy Swarbrick there. He just really seems to be struggling with the rear end on that car at the moment, and will be staying in 10th, owing to the gap between him and Paul Plant, who is very nearly on the same lap as him. But unfortunately, we won't see Guy Swarbrick kind of climbing back up the order again, I don't think, unfortunately, owing to the rear end issues he seems to be having with that car. Meanwhile, still 3/10 separating these two, as ever. 3/10 separating these two. Some really good pace between these two drivers over this weekend. Alan Matthews gaining on him through T2 there, with the back marker of Paul Plant just out in front for them. As we see in the mirrors there, Alan Matthews 4/10 separating these two. I could probably flick to another part of the track action, but I'm sure these two will still be just right next to each other. I can't think of any other point this weekend after Colin Keefe built his way up to Alan Matthews. I can't think of a single point where these two haven't been kind of on each other's radar. Excellent racing between these two so far. Looks like that gap's extended slightly now to just over a second as we head into T11. But looks like Alan Matthews was very brave under braking there to see him gain. X-Men, Paul Plant, the back marker spinning off. Hopefully, yes, luckily no real ill effects for these cars out in P2 and P3 respectively. But nevertheless, looks like Paul Plant struggling with the rear end of the car, perhaps similar to the issues that Guy Swarbrick's having. Guy Swarbrick probably very happy that this is a track comprised mainly of long straights. So half second separating P2 and P3, but 5 seconds now separating P2 and P1. Unfortunately, with just under 5 minutes remaining in this race, I don't think there'll be enough track time remaining for Colin Keefe or Alan Matthews to start challenging Andrew Craig, who has had a really good, consistent race out in front. However, they are now on the same straight. Colin Keefe can see him. Maybe that, a bit of that race driver mindset will kick in, and he'll start somehow finding pace, which we didn't even know he had yet, and start to really put some pressure on Craig. Then again, not much time left during this race. Looks like the rest of the grid has now started to separate out a little bit, obviously. Andrew Craig enjoying that 5 second gap out in front for the moment. Colin Keefe in second, with Alan Matthews closely behind in third. Matt Daly in fourth, with a gap to Alex Smith in fifth. Looks like he was riding the curb hard there. That'll put the suspension under some stress. About 15 seconds separating him and Will Harper. And apologies, I said there was a bit of a gap building between the whole grid, but Andrew Whitehead and Will Harper have found themselves competing with each other again. Andrew Whitehead Up in 7th is Rob Whitney has found himself in 8th. Will Harper will be feeling a little bit of pressure from him. Andrew Whitehead putting in a slightly quicker lap that time round. But just 2/10 for separating Colin Knief and Alan Matthews. Then Alan Matthews back on the rear end of Colin Knief as we head onto the the penultimate lap of this race we are on now. Alan Matthews actually getting the move done through P11, taking back 2nd position off Colin Knief. As his contact, unfortunately, looks like maybe Colin Knief have positioned his car slightly wrong, I think, from my perspective. Luckily, we see Alan Matthews not too badly affected by that, and Colin Knief will see himself a couple of seconds behind. Such a shame. They've both run such a brilliant couple of races so far. We finally see a little bit of contact from them. I suppose it was inevitable, really. They've been battling for so long and so hard. Nevertheless, no real major damage done. We'll just see Colin Knief on the bottom spot of the podium. He'll probably take that home. I doubt any damage he was carrying will really see him get challenged by Matt Daly, who was in 4th on the final lap of this race now. Looks like Andrew Whitehead has overtaken Will Harper. Will Harper looks like he's facing the wrong way, unfortunately, and that will see Rob Whitney take back 7th from him. Such a shame. We see people's races unravelling a little bit on this final lap of the race, whether that just be to the pressure of racing an entire weekend so closely, or just the tyres finally giving up and saying, look, I've had enough. They've been pushed so hard throughout the 2 races, and they've got to give at some point. Meanwhile, out in front, 8 seconds ahead of the car behind him, we have Andrew Krieger. Meanwhile, Guy Swarbrick will be staying in the points so far. Paul Platt having to pit. I imagine that might be for a DNF, unfortunately, owing to the damage. And Andrew Krieger is coming through T10 now. He has, since lap 1, had a commanding lead over the rest of the field. He was starting to get challenged ever so slightly by Colin Knief, but unfortunately that challenge unravelled for him with Alan Matthews overtaking and that unfortunate contact through this complex here. He will be heading onto the back straight now, and that victory is looking pretty much certain for him now. Just seeing the background there, Alan Matthews joining the back straight. No, I don't think there's any slipstream in the world that can give him the victory at this point, unfortunately. Nonetheless, excellent driving from these two. So, yeah, Paul Millman overtaking Paul Plant in the pits there as Andrew Krieger heads through T15 and through T16 now. On to the start-finish straight. We see this weekend's excellent racing come to an end with Andrew Krieger taking the victory in race 2. Excellent drive from him. Nice and consistent. Paul Plant exiting the pits there just to complete the race. Good on him for sticking through it with the damage he is carrying. Excellent consistent drive from Andrew Krieger there as Alan Matthews and Colin Knief complete their race. That fills out the podium spots. Excellent racing from all 3 of these drivers here. There's a bit of a gap now to Matt Daly heading through T16 now. Got a bit of oversteer and that puts him in the wall. Oh dear, what a shame. People seem to struggle with the rear end of the cars towards the end of this race, unfortunately, but that's no worry for Matt Daly at the moment. That will have probably hurt the old neck a little bit, but he will cross the line in 4th. Alex Smith heading through T15 there. And into T16 now. He will cross the line in 5th. I believe that's the second 5th place for Alex Smith, enjoying some victory swerving. It goes a little bit wrong for him and he sees himself in the wall. Nevertheless, 2 5th positions, a nice haul of points from this weekend for him. Let's hope he doesn't affect the car. Just behind him a little bit, Andrew Whitehead crossing the line in 6th. Not too far. Actually, we got Will Harper and Rob Whitney, who will cross the line out in front there. I think, yeah, it was classified. Was it classified as Will Harper? We will have to see in the official standings for that event. That was a photo finish for me. I couldn't quite work out who that was. I think it might have been Will Harper taking over 7th. Nevertheless, excellent battle from these two here to be so close towards the very absolute final stage of this race. Guy Swarbrick now coming through T16. He will take 9th. Nice couple of points for him there after his misfortune slightly earlier on in the race. Steve Knight, has he had an engine failure or he's run out of fuel? He's run out of fuel, and that we'll see. Will that... Unfortunately, I think, luckily for him, he's run out of fuel, but the cars behind him are a lap down, so they will classify in their current positions, and that will leave Steve Knight to crawl himself to 10th, I imagine, or the session will come to an end and he may be classified as such. Regardless, as we see the Tartus equivalent of the AA recovery fleet coming to help him out there as he's out of fuel. What an interesting finish to that race there then. So, an excellent bit of driving again. We saw even more chaos than we did in the first race. Well, probably equal amounts, but nevertheless, it continued. Some excellent battles through that race weekend. So, I'll have to double check the standings for that race, but nevertheless, another great weekend for Colin Knief. He had an excellent one through Brands Hatch, and this will help him immensely in the championship fight. Matt Daly not having a great first race and only getting 4th in the second one. Colin Knief will have taken away a good amount of points this weekend. So that concludes round 4 at Shanghai, China. I enjoyed commentating on that very much. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it, and we'll see you for round 5 shortly. From me, it's a goodbye. Goodbye.